Rich people use that to grow assets and own assets. Poor people usually are afraid of that. And my only regret is going for businesses that were too small. Failure is not a problem. It's what you do with failure that matters. And you are going to make mistakes. I like to always think about the constraint because it opens up the door to doubling your business within 12 months. Having the first sell online is pretty powerful. So I knew if I can get them to their first sell, it's going to be really successful.
That's such a good idea that I'm just ashamed that I didn't think of it. Hi, and welcome to the Kika Says podcast. Today, we're talking about why most businesses don't fail from lack of effort, but from focusing on the wrong thing. I'm joined by my special guest, Delia Ursulescu, who is an entrepreneur and business buyer who focuses on acquiring and partnering with established business. Delia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to be talking about some of these concepts that I've learned over the last 10, 15 years.
Well, to level set, you do a few things. So let's kind of break that down. You buy and grow local businesses. You help businesses use artificial intelligence, and you also help content creators improve their student results. So when you are buying a business, what do you typically look for when you are starting that acquisition process?
Yeah, that's a good question. We all think that we have to start something, and most people don't know that buying a business is available to most of us. You don't have to have a lot of money. Which I didn't know, right? I thought you have to have millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you don't need a lot of money because there are creative ways to buy businesses. And I like buying businesses because you get some systems, some operational stuff. You don't have to go from 0 to 1. The hardest thing is really going from 0 to 1. And I've done it several times. I've learned a ton, but it's hard. Even in physics, they say that it takes, I think, like 100 times more effort to go from 0 to 1 than from 1 to 10. So that's one of the principles I've discovered, and I realized, I can do a lot more if I just find something that's working, buy it, work on it, and then grow it. Personally, I got into buying businesses because I've always liked business strategy. Like I always like to find hidden gaps or golden, nuggets in what people are doing and take that and reuse it, repurpose it. It's my focus going forward. I do buy with other people. I rarely buy by myself because I know my strengths and I'm trying to leverage my strengths rather than try to do everything. I find people who have other strengths, and I always partner with people nowadays. And saying that, I know partnerships can be hard. I'm not saying it's been the easiest, but when you find the right people, it's so much easier.
I think partnerships is definitely hard because you have two cooks in the kitchen. So who's going to cook the dish, I guess, at the end of the day. But for buying businesses, like, do you go onto a website? Do you just ask people? Like, how do you find it?
There are many ways to do it. There are directories like bizbuysell.com, right? So there are websites where you can go and see what businesses are available in your area. There are business brokers. You can go to these business brokers and ask, what kind of businesses do you have available for sale? So those are easy ways, and you'll probably find deals that won't allow you to be very creative in the financing because you have to pay for these businesses. Personally, I look for businesses that are making at least $250,000 in profit because you have to service the debt. If the business is doing $250,000 of profit, it will probably pay 2, 3, 4 times that number. The multiple that you pay on the profit is dependent on how involved the business owner is in the business, what kind of processes, does it have a team? If it doesn't have a team, I don't really like buying it unless it's something I can add to current businesses. So for instance, I have a print shop. Let's say I find a business owner who works in the business, has a really good book of business, but he does most of the stuff in the business. I can buy that business because I already have a team. I can just add it to my current printing business. So when you have a platform business, it's easier to buy new ones and build and actually buy to, deal with your weaknesses in the current business, or buy to grow in different ways, right? Horizontally, vertically. Anyone who is interested in buying businesses has to identify the criteria. You have to be able to pay for the business. You don't want to buy a business unless you're really good at turning things over. You don't want to buy a business that's not profitable. So you have to find a business that is profitable, and then the cash flow has to pay you and pay the debt. So those are two big things. Do you want to be involved in the business or not, right? Do you want to work in the business or not? That's also part of the criteria. And then if you don't want to be involved in the business, that means you probably need to buy a bigger business that has a team with a general manager in place. Is it possible for most people? Probably, but it might take a little longer to find it. Because again, if you go to directories like Bids by Sale or brokers, you're not going to find the best deals. If you want to find those deals where you go to the owner and say, hey, I'd like to buy your business, but I don't really have a lot of money, so can you finance the deal? Like the seller becomes the bank. There are people who do it all the time. I've done it in a small way. I have friends who have done it. They put almost no money down and bought a business. But those types of deals, you find them by going to local events or by sending letters to local businesses. So you have to go find the people who are maybe motivated to sell. They're close to retirement. Maybe they've gone through a divorce, health issues. And I remember this story. There was someone who called me because he knows I buy businesses. He said, hey, you're in the printing world. There's this sign shop here locally, and I won't mention the name. The owner has some health issues, and I think they're trying to sell, but the wife decided to close the business within 2 weeks because it was too much. She was dealing with too much. She went through a broker. They couldn't find anyone, within a month or two. And I was leaving the state. I was going on some trip. So I couldn't really look into it. I couldn't talk to them. By the time I got back, the business was closed. This was one small business that had been around for 20, 25 years or maybe longer. It just closed down. When you find those types of businesses, those are motivated sellers. People who are going through those types of events are usually willing to give you the business for free as long as you take over lease and employees and you can deal with everything. They usually can't really train you, but if they're closing retirement, they're willing to train you. So again, it depends who the seller is, what they have to offer, what do you need. Those types of things are going to impact the criteria. And I know I'm going over all kinds of criterion to look at. The big thing is identify what you're trying to accomplish, and that's going to drive where you're looking for the businesses and what you can do. We can talk for hours about just the strategies to find businesses. Hopefully people got some ideas about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't even know that there was these websites or business brokers and paying even like 3 to 4 times multiples, the financing, the cash flow where you're going to pay off the debt while it's making revenue. You made a good point. Bigger teams, right? You don't want to work there. Find something that's established. If you're going to put in your sweat equity, as they say, then maybe you find a small business. I was thinking about one business. It's kind of breaking even. It's a very small business, and I wanted to pursue it. It's just something on the side, and it's not profitable though. It's just breaking even. If someone was to sell you it for a relatively cheap price, because they're in your situation, let's say they're retiring and everything, would you consider it, thinking like maybe you can scale that business and maybe add on additional products, services potentially to get out of that break-even point?
That's a great question because it depends who's buying the business, right? So the answer might be different based on who is considering the idea. If I bring something to the table that I know will double the business within the next year or two, then it makes sense to consider it. But if I don't have anything to bring to the table to improve it, to grow it, it would be a lot harder to say yes. My only regret in buying businesses up to this point, I bought a few. I've lost quite a bit of money too. So it's not like every deal is going to be great. You have to be careful. But my only regret is going for businesses that were too small. I wish I would have gotten, like, the businesses were somewhere close between, $500,000 and 1.2 million in revenue. So pretty small businesses. Might sound like big businesses for most people, but they're not. And because when you buy, you can use SBA for about 90% of the purchase price. So then you only have to come up with 10%, and you don't even have to come up with the 10%. The seller can fund that 10%, and then you only have to put 90% down. Now, SBA rules have changed in 2025, and the down payment has changed. I think they require now 5%. When I was looking for businesses, I didn't even have to have anything to put down. The seller could fund the 10%. SBA would guarantee the 90%. And the SBA loan is dependent on the cash flow of the business. If the business has been cash flow positive for the last couple of years. So that means when I was looking for things, I didn't need to have any money to put down. Again, not something I realized until I started reading, taking courses, going to conferences. So I spent quite a bit of money because I wanted to know what's possible. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing interviews and I talk to people about it, is because local businesses are closing down. There are actually a few businesses I'm looking at currently. If they don't find a buyer, they close down, and 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 people are going to lose their jobs. By buying businesses, I can actually have a positive impact and also make money. We have to be careful, right? The types of businesses we buy, because you can buy the wrong type of business that you cannot grow, or that has a lot of issues, and then you have to keep putting money into it. It becomes very overwhelming, very hard, and you end up closing it later. So I'm not saying it's necessarily a super easy thing to do, but it's possible to have cash flow positive businesses, to buy them and actually also help the community. And if you have people on the team, if you have a decent team, you can really grow it because they usually know how to grow it. But that requires you to be a good leader. So maybe I don't know anything about the business, and I bought 3 businesses in 3 industries I knew nothing about. Concrete manufacturing, that was equity investment. Print shop, I knew a little bit about printing, but not enough to buy a business. And commercial hood cleaning, which is the local business. All those 3 were industries I didn't know about, but I wanted to start buying businesses, even in industries I don't know about. So I figured, what's the best way to do it? You jump in, you learn. And I've learned a ton. Most people have something they can bring to the table. They don't realize they do, but they do. Maybe a person's really great at hiring. Imagine bringing that into a business you buy that's at least breaking even or cash flow positive. You can hire better people, get rid of the people who are not doing their job, and you can probably change the business within 6 to 12 months. Someone could be really good at sales or building relationships. That's all they have to bring to the table. That's huge. You just build relationships with the great referral partners, and you can completely change your business. So it's not like the person has to have a lot to bring to the table. They just have to identify who they are, what they have to bring to the table. And I have this framework: orient yourself, O for orient yourself, W, weigh your options. You have to know, right, some of the options, what are the financing options, and how to do your due diligence, figure out if it's a good business or not, if there are red flags. OWN, N is navigate and negotiate. There's no one rule that applies to every acquisition. You always have to pay two times the multiple or 3 times the profit. That's not true. You can pay 1 or 2.2, 3, 5, depends on the business, the team, the person. So it's always a negotiation. Now, there are standards, right? If the business is making usually under $250,000 per year or around that number, most people pay 2.5, the seller discretionary earning, what the owner plus the business makes in profit. Now, if the team is good, most people might pay 3x that number, right? So there's so many different factors that impact the purchase price. The point is you want to have some guardrails, right, to navigate, to know what the options are, but it's a negotiation thing. Like I said, I have a friend who bought a business locally. He put almost no money down. It was doing 6 figures. It was not a great business. It was doing 6 figures, but he had a good reason to buy it, and he grew it close to 7 figures within a few years. And he put almost nothing down. That is possible. He went to the guy and he said, "Can I buy your business? But I don't have much money. I can give you $25,000. And then I pay you, $1,000 per month for, I don't know how many months he ended up paying him for." And I need you to train me or my team to grow this business because I don't know anything about it. And the guy was willing to do it. He was just tired of running it and he was ready to go. His landlord told my friend he's not going to sell, but he was willing to go and ask. He said, "Hey, are you willing to sell?" And the guy said, "Yeah, let's talk about it." So you never know until you ask. And that's just one example, one story, right? There's no rule of who to ask, what to do, what to say. You can just be brave and courageous and try it. But I would say if you're a new person who has not done it, look for a cash flow positive business. It's going to make your life easier. If someone is listening to this and they've turned businesses around, they know they can go into a business and grow it by 20 to 50 to 100%. Those people have skills that would allow them to take a break even or a business that is not making money. But for most people, I would say start with a cash flow positive business. There are plenty of those out there. You just have to find them.
Wow, I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose. This is such good information. I didn't even know about the loans, how to even find businesses. You mentioned a little bit on negotiating it. It doesn't always have to be 2, 3, 4 times the multiples. I didn't even know that you could buy a business without having to fund it up front. Like those are all amazing concepts to I wish I knew these things, you know what I mean? And I know a lot of people always want to do business, but they don't know where to get started. But I think you left enough breadcrumbs where if someone wanted to find out more, one, they're probably going to reach out to you. Two, they're probably going to now have a better idea of, oh, there's this link. Oh, there's a loan. Oh, there's cash flow positive. I should consider that. Maybe I can grow it. You even touch upon the skill sets. Like even if you have no cash, you people bring something to the table. Everybody has a talent. So can that talent be that thing that turns that business around, that innovation or whatever that person brings to make it cash flow positive? So there's a lot to really digest there. And there's a lot of ways that could go. That was amazing. I thank you for that. That was very insightful, even for me, because that's actually something that I've always had in the back of my mind is like, what would that look like for me if I was to buy a business? So
yeah, the other thing to consider, and I think we can talk for hours and hours for each one of these topics, like how to look at your own skill set and determine what is the right business for you, how to negotiate, how to fund your businesses. There are tons of topics we can cover. But the other thing I would say is you can find people who have the money and you can partner with them. Personally, I never buy a business without someone who I know is going to operate it. I don't always have the money for it, but I find the money because if you find a good deal and a good business, you can show investors, and a lot of times initially our family and friends, right? You can show how you can grow it or double it. It's easy for them to take a risk. I'm going to add another funding idea. If people have money in their 401k in retirement accounts, they can transfer that into a self-directed IRA. And this is not financial advice, so do not take it as financial advice. Ask an expert. But they can transfer some of the money that they have in their 401ks. I would suggest a small amount to actually put as a down payment for the business. Or if they're not interested in being involved in the business, they want to be passive investors, that would be a way to fund it. So there are tons of ways to fund it. And if people have a skill set, they need to discover people like me who are into buying businesses and then show that they're willing to put the work to grow a business. In my businesses, I want to do profit sharing with our employees. And it's not always easy because it takes a while, right, to turn a business around and to get it to a point where you can share in the profits. But I'm always interested in people who have skill sets or have the hunger to learn and can work hard, because work ethic matters the most. Like money doesn't matter. You can find money. Skills, you can develop skills. You don't need any of those. But work ethic and character, those things you cannot teach. And that's what matters the most. Like I would always be willing to partner with someone who has the work ethic, even if they don't have the skills or the money. Now, does it mean that it's going to be easy? No, it's going to take them a while because they still have to develop some skills. But there are so many ways. I'm hoping by just talking about it that people start to imagine a different way of getting into business, either through acquisition or maybe partnering with someone. Even if you're someone's listening and they're working for a person who is getting closer to retirement, if this person has been a good worker, has good work ethic, it's not that difficult to go to the owner and say, hey, what if I buy this business from you and over the next year or two, you teach me everything you know so that I can transition into being an owner. And then the financial part, the funding part, you can figure it out. There are tons of different ways. The seller can fund part of it. You can get an SBA loan. You can get other loans. You can get business credit cards with zero interest for 12 to 18 months to maybe fund some of it. And I know not everybody is into debt, but rich people use debt to grow assets and own assets. Poor people usually are afraid of debt because maybe they've had experiences with debt being misused. So there's bad debt and good debt. And I've made mistakes. I've had too much bad debt at times. And then I've done bad investments. I'm not saying I'm, the expert and I haven't made mistakes. But it's part of the process. You make mistakes, you learn, and you keep going. Like if you know your vision is to own businesses, then there are many paths to get there.
Wow, that's amazing. There's a lot there. And I do think like even my imagination is just firing off. I'm like, man, there's actually a whole world out there that no one's ever taught me about. And the funny thing is I even went to college and was in the business concentration. And I took a ton of business classes and I still never heard information like this.
That is something. I did not go to college for business. I studied philosophy and religion, so I don't have that background. I taught myself most everything through books, classes, and mostly mentors. If you want to go this path or any business path, I would say it's way faster to find people who are doing what you want to do or people who have skill sets you don't have and build a community, get involved in communities. It's the best way.
Yeah, especially, I think you nailed it. If you have a mentor, like, wow, talk about taking something that takes you 16 months to 6 months to 6 hours or 6 minutes. Like, how faster can you get that ball rolling if someone's just giving you that blueprint? So let's kind of take a break from the business buying for a second. Let's talk about the business growing. So you also do business growth. So what does that whole thing look like? Is it like consulting?
Yeah, I've helped a lot of different businesses grow their own business, either by paying me a retainer or by partnering with me. So it's like sweat equity. If I grow your business, you pay me a percentage. I've done it a few times, and it was really cool because I would get a commission, right, payment every month. Because we knew the baseline, like the business was already doing X amount of sales per month, the average. So we took the average, anything that was above the average, we shared profits 50-50. And I've done it for digital businesses and some local businesses. So there, again, that's another way to maybe even buy into a business. You can consult for equity and use your consulting, whatever skill you have to buy equity into the business. And people think you have to be the smart person to do it. Certainly, you have to have some skills, but most of the time, having a second pair of eyes, just look at a business, someone who's been in business, who's done plenty of mistakes, that allows the person to see issues and red flags or low-hanging fruit. It's so useful to have someone else just come ask questions and identify things. But because we get too used to our day-to-day operation stuff and we don't really see the forest for the trees. So it's extremely important. And then if people are willing to, right, pay me, if I make the money, it's an easy sell. It's a risk-free proposal. So I've done those several times and I enjoyed it because there was no risk, right? It's not like they pay me $25,000. And there are times when I charge people. It depends on a few different things. If their business is successful and I know I can help them, I'll charge 10, 25K. I don't do it very often because it takes me away from my own businesses, but it's a fun thing to do. And I actually learn a ton through the process and I help them, they help me. It's a lot of fun for me. And a lot of times, really, this is one of my secrets, is I ask questions. By asking enough questions, you identify things that need to be solved. And so often, the people in the business have part of the answer or the whole answer, but they don't ask the right questions. And someone new coming in can look at things differently and uncover things. Now, of course, having a background in business helps. So it's going to be a lot more effective for someone who's been in business to use consulting for equity to earn equity. But it's fun. Like if you like business, it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, and I think that's a great tip where you said that, hey, if I just scale it beyond your baseline, then you can split 50-50. I mean, I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine. He has a coffee shop. It popped in. He's like, I've been thinking about this question. I feel like, have I outgrown my community? And I said, definitely not, man. There's so many ways you could probably still, why does the customer have to come to you? Why can't you go to the customer? You know what I mean? I was like, have you ever thought of that? He's like, well, that's actually a good question. Actually, I haven't thought about that. So there's different ways, different innovations that you could definitely grow. And if you go 50-50, like I never even thought of that. Like, yeah, maybe I should go to my friend and give him the proposal. Hey, let me grow your business. And if I can get you some leads or some contracts, then hey, let's split it. You know what I mean? No risk for him, no risk for me. If I do nothing, no harm, no foul. That's not a bad idea. So I'll have to bring it up to him next time I see him.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can turn it into a case study, right? For someone who hasn't done it, all you have to do is do it once, turn it into a case study, and then you can do it the second time and the third time. Most people are not willing to do free work for a long amount of time. I'll mention one of my clients who we had a baseline deal with him, and we said, you look at your average and anything above, we'll split 50-50. I worked on that account for about 4 months and made no money, actually spent some money. But then by month 5, we started to see some traction. Within a year, I was paid a few $1,000s per month from that business. I still get some recurring checks actually deposited in my PayPal account from that account. 5 years later, I don't even remember when we started, and I'm not doing any work. We ended the relationship, but there was something I created for them that is still generating sales. It's part of their sales funnel. And anytime that bootcamp is making sales, I get a percentage of it. It was pretty cool. But I started by putting a lot of time into it. Most people are not willing to work for free for 4, 5, 6 months. Sometimes you just only need to work for free for a month. And that's why they don't get to that point where they can have these types of deals. But if there is a little bit of trust, it's much easier to make the proposal. Like it's a lot harder if the person doesn't know you. But if they know you and it's a risk-free proposal, like why not? Give me 2 months. Give me 60 days, 90 days. I like 90 days usually because the first 30 days, you kind of figure out what's going on. The second 30 days, you work on some stuff. You see what works, what doesn't. The next 30 days, you kind of refine it. So by day 90, you usually know what is going to work, if it's going to work, if it's worth it. So I like to at least get 90 days to do my, try the things I'm trying to try.
Yeah, it's a good trial period, 90 days. I mean, it's a good amount of time where you have some results and you can identify, before we continue more, let's just see what this looks like and then go from there. Yeah, that's a good time box for it. That way you're also motivated. You got 90 days to show some results. And then they're also have an expectation. So it kind of keeps both people accountable.
I had to fire customers too. So that's why I'm very careful on taking consulting clients, because sometimes they expect too much. And usually the smaller the business, the more hope they put into you. They see you as this magician that's going to completely change their business. And it's a lot harder if they have unrealistic expectations. So I had to fire people, even though we put work into it. We generated sales for them and we had to pull away because it was a toxic relationship. So not every deal is going to work. That's the important, point. But guess what? Because I had that experience, because it was a terrible experience, now I'm better at making these deals, knowing who I work well with. And it makes it easier to come up with these proposals. So every experience is a learning lesson. That's why it's okay making mistakes. No person who's successful has gotten to where they are because they're these, genius people. It's because they made more mistakes than the people who decided to stop before they reached to success. So Failure is not a problem. It's what you do with failure that matters. And you are going to make mistakes, whether you buy a business, where you try to grow a business, whether you want to work with people to grow their businesses, whatever you want to do, you're going to make mistakes and probably lose time or money. And that's part of the process. If you teach yourself that or remind yourself of that truth, it's so much easier to deal with it when it comes. And I still have days, right, when it's so hard. I'm like, I wish this would work faster. But I've learned that failure is part of the process. You have to learn the lessons. You have to experiment to see what works. And then that is going to build up, right? Every lesson kind of builds up on itself, and you get compounding effect after a while.
Yeah, you kind of build that talent stack from one failure to the next failure, or one business to the next business. And then you take the good, what worked, and you apply it to the next. And then it just gives you a better way and a more holistic way to look at the problems and how to solve them. So yeah, I definitely think failures are just learning opportunities, and that there's silver lining in it. Now I think half of it is knowing what not to do. So that's good. But you also do artificial intelligence. I was looking at your website, and you help, I think, integrate or implement AI in some businesses. So what does that process look like? Do you have like an example? What does that mean exactly?
So I like to always think strategically before I go and find a tool to help my business. If a business owner has no vision for where they're going and what they're trying to do, adding AI to it is going to amplify all the problems. It's not going to help them. So before anyone thinks about AI, I like to think strategically about the business. Okay, what's the vision? What are the constraints? If you think of a garden hose, water flows through it. If you have a kink, right, there's a constraint there. It's going to limit the amount of water that can flow through it. So why would you even consider using AI when you don't even know what your constraint is? That you can use AI to think through and ask questions to identify the constraints if that's not your strength as a business owner. And that's probably the first step. And you don't have to know how to build workflows and connect AI tools. You can just go to your AI tool of choice, let's say Claude or ChatGPT, and use it to identify the constraint in your own business. I've built these prompts that are longer, and I am asking ChatGPT, for instance, to identify experts who have tons of content out there who might be my virtual mentors. And then I have these conversations with these virtual mentors. You could have Steve Jobs comment on your idea, technically, because AI is really good at drawing assumptions based on the work of that person, right? There's so much content for most of these experts out there. So AI can take that and act like Steve Jobs and analyze, evaluate your idea. So I go sometimes to AI tools and I ask them, this is my business, these are my constraints, or these are my issues. This is what I think is possible. I want you to act like an expert in this domain, identify the best expert, and ask me questions to really uncover what the problem is, and then help me build a 30, 60, 90-day plan. So that doesn't require any technical knowledge. So I start there with most business owners. When it comes to workflows and application, using AI agents, for instance, for answering calls after hours, that's something I'm building with a couple of partners, and we're testing it on our businesses or on partner businesses. We haven't done it at scale for clients, but it's something we probably will start do later in 2026. The other thing I've used AI for is actually I taught my team, let's say in the print shop, on how to use AI to find answers. Printing covers so many different types of printing. When you hire new people, it's overwhelming. So I've created courses in ChatGPT, like 5-day courses on how to use AI to answer questions about printing, or how to improve the effectiveness of your emails. I have a customer support person who reaches out to a lot of people for the business, and I had her go through a 5-day AI course. I created a custom GPT that taught her how to rephrase her emails to actually get more people to answer. And as she started using it, she realized, oh, that was so helpful. Now don't say that. I don't use that phrase anymore because AI told me not to. I use this other phrase, and actually I got responses. So I use AI in a lot of different ways, but you can think of it in terms of the low value tasks. if there are admin tasks that a business does over and over and over again every day, it's smart to look at AI tools to replace it. But you can also use AI tasks for the strategic questions, right? Have AI act like a collaborative group of experts to really stress test your idea. I've done it so many times. I got so many good ideas. And then even reading contracts, asking AI to identify red flags, writing a letter of intent. When you buy a business, you do an LOI, letter of intent, saying, hey, I'm interested in buying your business for this much. And you have to, write it. I had AI use an old one that an attorney wrote for me and customize it for other businesses. There's so many different ways to do it. So far, most of my work has been in our businesses, training our teams. I have seen amazing improvements in so many areas because now my team knows how to use ChatGPT. They don't even need a paid version to improve what they're doing or to ask questions. I had my graphic design person use AI to learn about different types of substrates and materials that we were not using because someone came to us with a really custom request. So I don't have to answer these questions anymore, especially the simple questions. I'm like, go to ChatGPT first and then come to me. So it helps a lot for business owner just to start integrating it.
I mean, that's an amazing tip right there. I mean, you mentioned where you could have ChatGPT act like these business owners, whether it's Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, or someone else, to kind of be that mentor or give advice and poke holes through the idea, or even just find the constraints in the process. And you're asking it to act like them, to ask you questions, to uncover those problem areas. And I think just that alone is $1 million idea. I mean, I'm sure there's business owners right now that are watching, listening to this, and it's like, man, why haven't I thought of that idea? That's such a good idea that I'm just ashamed that I didn't think of it. So that's awesome. And then obviously the low level tasks, automation. If you can automate it, great. The AI agents where you're doing some of the automation, that's cool. So if businesses are going that route and need a consulting or need to figure out, or if you're working with them and they need to figure out, I mean, that's kind of how you incorporate the AI tools in their business. It's a good suggestion. Go to the AI first. If they can't figure it out, if it's not good advice, come to me. Have you ever come into a situation where like it's just been bad advice?
Oh, totally. Yes. So AI generalizes things, and what based on the input, the output is determined by the input. AI amplifies all the problems you bring to the table. I don't know if you've read any of those articles in the New York Times about teenagers being advised to kill themselves, AI, right? Because AI kind of gives you what you want. It repeats, it sees how you form your sentences, and it reads into it, understands you better than you understand yourself, sadly, because it's built on so much data. So these social algorithms or AI algorithms or AI systems, LLMs, they identify what you really want based on how you ask the question, the words you use, and your choice of words is going to push the AI tool right in different directions. So it's very fascinating what these AI tools are able to do. But because they just repeat what is generalized knowledge, a lot of times it can be bad knowledge because it's not specific to you. So you have to know how to ask questions and develop the ability. The better questions you ask, the better answers you will get. And then when you get an answer, never accept that as the right answer. Always ask the AI tool to stress test the idea. What would an expert in this field say if I told them what you told me? Allow other experts and other frameworks to evaluate the idea, right? Tell the AI tool, right, to first check assumptions, the ideas against knowledge and what other experts are saying. You can build a lot of safety measures and guardrails into it because it can be really bad. But if you go, several steps in, layers in, you're going to get a lot better results. That's why a lot of people say AI is terrible. Like, why would you use it? Is because they don't ask good questions and they give up. They accept the first or second answer and that's it. Go like 5 layers deep, right? Keep asking the AI tool to use various mental frameworks, mental models to evaluate the idea, to analyze it. When I watch a YouTube video, for instance, I get the transcript. And then I use Bloom's taxonomy, which is a taxonomy used in education to analyze the transcript. Whether I listen to the podcast or I don't, or the YouTube video, I get the transcript to see what is the person saying, and then to see if I can take any of those insights and apply into my business. So Bloom taxonomy starts with, I think, distill the main points. I don't remember off the top of my head. Analyze it, evaluate it, critique it, and something else. Well, I take it step by step, and I tell the AI tool first, distill the main points. So I get the main points, whether I want to use them or not. Then I say, okay, now analyze these ideas from various perspectives. Because if you're looking at any concept, you can analyze it from different angles. A business owner, a financial advisor, a tax person, a business attorney, a marketing growth manager, all of those people can look at the same problem differently. Well, have AI act like different people, you're going to get better results. So, right, that's why I go through the Bloom's taxonomy and I analyze it from the perspective, I evaluate it, I critique it, and then I say, okay, now let me give you some details about my business, and then take those ideas, those insights, and see, can I use them in my business? If, like, how and why, and then give me a 90-day plan. And you're still the business owner, the human person who's going to make these decisions. If we use AI right, it's going to make us better. But if we use it wrongly, it's going to amplify our errors and mistakes. So I always think of AI as being an amplification tool, whether it's for good or bad. So you have to be careful, right, what you put in what type of questions you ask. I don't know if that's helpful or confusing to people.
No, it's definitely helpful. For myself, I have what I call like a board of directors, but it's just 3 of my friends, right? And they all kind of have different backgrounds. So any big life decision I would make, buying a car, buying a house, what's my 3-panel board for my life going to say? So it's kind of like that filter. But for those people, and especially now after COVID, who's destroyed a bunch of relationships and friendships, and people are more isolated, it's one way to still kind of get that feedback. And I mean, I don't have friends that are in some of these other niches anyways. Like I don't have a financial expert. Now I know you're buying businesses. That's awesome. I might call you like, hey, what's up with this? What's up with that? But prior to that, I mean, this is for the people that are watching or listening. AI can be that expert in that domain to give them that perspective. And as you said, as long as you go deeper, like 6, 7, 8, 10 layers deep into it, it's going to really open up the conversation and ideas. And I like what you said first is don't take the first answer. The first answer is always the wrong answer. So create better prompts to get better results.
Yeah, I have a lot of prompts I've created that I've shared with business owners, and I'm happy to share them with people. I'll have to come up with a link that we can post all of those there, because I developed these long prompts that act like the safeguards, the guardrails to make sure AI stays on the right path and you get better answers. And then, of course, it's using a really well-written prompt is going to give you better answers. It's like going 5 layers deep. And then you start at layer 5 and then you go deeper. So imagine the wealth of knowledge you can get from AI tools that way. But the other thing, right, that's coming up very soon is going to be AI agents, where you have, right, the AI tools do work for you. The prompting is, I think, AI 101. Everyone should learn it because better questions lead to better outputs, better inputs, better outputs. That's always been the case. But agents are going to start doing things for you. If you're not able to tell exactly this agent what you need, you're going to have the same problems. It's going to magnify issues. So learning how to prompt, how to figure out what you need to say, using AI to help you, right, figure out what you need to ask, how to ask it. It's an extremely important tool. I think it's going to continue to be extremely important for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Because again, it goes, I know I'm repeating myself, better inputs, better outputs. And if you have these tools, right, make connections between different platforms. Let's say you have an AI agent research prospects or leads and write emails and create videos on your behalf to sell a service. The clearer you are on who you serve and what you want to sell and how to make your offer the best type of offer you can make, those types of things, you have to decide as a business owner. And those are more strategic questions that you have to figure out. So you can use AI to improve it, but you have to make those final decisions. So it's going to determine, right, the output of the agents and the likelihood of success. So this is a skill that is going to be beneficial for everyone. The more you do it, the better. So I'm willing to share some of these prompts. Maybe it helps people.
There's a lot of business nuggets there, and we could dive more into it. And it's all super interesting. But I want to pivot for a moment, and I want to go into your backstory because you were not always into business. You were a teacher before you got into all of this. So before business, you studied philosophy and religion, and you even taught at the college level. You were teaching ethics. So what made you choose to be a teacher and teach ethics? Because that's drastically different than all the business talk that we just had.
Yeah, I was searching for answers for myself. I was trying to figure out what is the truth. And that's why I went into studying philosophy and the word religions. I grew up in a communist country. I was born in a communist country. Communism fell when I was 5 years old. So it's not like I experienced it on my own skin. But the culture of fear that communism instilled in the country, the damage communism created was still prevalent when I was a teenager. So I saw a lot of those things, and it felt like life is way too hard. Like, why would anyone want to live in this world? It doesn't make any sense. It felt very dark. And I had plenty of stories, right, of how communism threw people in prison. People disappeared because they spoke against the government. So it was a pretty, dark background. Well, as a teenager, I was pretty depressed, thinking like life is not worth living. Why am I living? What am I living for? So I started to look for answers, and that led me into discovering that there is a God that cares for, right, his children, and it opened up the door to ask even deeper questions and understanding suffering and pain, all these other things. So as I discover answers, I wanted to be able to understand other people's reasons for choosing their belief system, but I also wanted to understand and refine my own answers and continue to search for it. And that led to me teaching ethics and philosophy at the college level. And I loved it. I still do. That's what I do for fun. If someone comes to me and says, hey, let's talk about whatever philosopher or this idea or that idea, I would probably say yes. It's a fun thing to do. I also enjoy being out in nature, but those deep conversations or interesting conversation are always exciting. But I switched to business because I saw how the impact business can have in someone's life. So I don't see them as being really different. As a business owner, the more questions I ask, the better questions I ask, the more impact I have around me, and also the more money I make. So the skills that I developed as an amateur philosopher actually helped me a ton as a business owner. They also hurt me, because I would overthink decisions. And for the first 5 years or so of my entrepreneurial journey, I would overthink decisions. I can, with certainty, tell you that I've lost 7 figures because of it. I had people who wanted to invest in my Amazon businesses when we were importing from China, selling on Amazon. And I said no, because I was afraid. I was afraid of losing their money. It was so easy in 2013 when I started importing from China, selling on Amazon, to do that process, to build private label brands, to take them from 0 to 6, 7 figures within 3 to 12 months. I would have made a killing. But I was afraid. I didn't have the right mindset. I was, a newbie business owner. However, the skill sets I've learned to ask questions during my schooling and then later actually allowed me to get to this point. And now I think I have a better vision. I think I enjoy what I do a lot more because I've asked deep questions and I stopped myself from going one direction or another. It also stopped me from making money at times. And I'm convinced I lost tons of money because I would overthink things. But I do think overall, it helped me a ton.
That's great. It's a talent stack. So you're kind of building on the teaching and then you're building on the business. But you're doing teaching, so you're inspired to do that. You're seeking questions. Business is probably nowhere in sight at this point. So at some point, you got to make a jump. So Like, what was that moment where you're like, okay, I'm not teaching anymore. I'm going to do business? Because like you have to make a decision one day, right? So what happened for you to make that decision to make that jump?
Yeah, that's a good question. So 2011, when I moved back to the Sacramento area because I had some health issues, I almost died. And I realized, I'd like to spend more time around family. I actually like them and I would like to spend more time with them. So I moved back home, couldn't find a job, learned about freelancing, started to do freelancing work research for firms via an online site. There are these online sites, they're a lot more popular now, but in 2011, there weren't a lot. Odesk was the name of the site I used. I think it's Upwork right now, and I use Fiverr. So I've done a lot of research and a lot of work as a freelancer on those sites to make money. I learned about importing from China, bringing stuff in here. So I actually built my business before I started teaching. I went back to school as I was building my business because I never really planned on being a business person. I was just doing it to get some cash on the side and be able to fund other things, do the other things I wanted to do. Within 3 or 4 years of doing business, being back in the PhD program, and then that opened the door to teach, I realized I like both like a lot. Oh, how am I going to make the choice? But I was teaching part-time, almost full-time, and then I still had the business that was paying me a salary. So it was easy to make the transition for me because both of them could have, I could have chosen either path. It was because of the vision after talking to mentors and spending a few months thinking about what I want to do when I grow up. I made the decision to go business first, build it, buy some businesses, buy, exit, and then go back to teaching if I still want to do it. And I think I still want to do it. So it's not done yet. I will still go back to teaching, I think, in the future. But in the meantime, I'm focused on business just because I know you have to focus. There comes a point where you have to focus. And that's what I did. I just decided to focus.
There's a few things there, but I want to get the timeline correctly. Did you start with business and then you went into teaching, or you went into teaching and then you went to business and now you're thinking about teaching again?
Yeah, I started with business. I was making money. I had a salary for my business. It wasn't a lot, but it was a salary that I was paid every month while I started the PhD. And then after I started the PhD, within 3 or so years, I got a teaching position. I mean, the timeline is kind of blurry in my head too, but I was making money from business and then got to teach online. And so I was doing both at the same time for a few years.
And then you went back into like business more full-time to focus. You said you almost died, which is crazy. That's a super interesting story right there. We won't get into anything confidential, but then that brought you back into freelancing. You moved back with your family or close to them, and you're like, well, let me freelance. You did Fiverr and Odesk, which might be Upwork now, and then that's kind of how you were like, okay, I'll just do the business stuff right now. I could do it remotely, recover, spend time with the family, and then whenever I'm ready, go back into either more business or decide if I want to go back into teaching, because apparently you love them both.
Yeah, I did not go into business thinking I would continue, like I stay in the business. That was never the plan. I don't know why. I never really considered that. But within 5 or 6 years, I think this was a main reason why I started to enjoy business more. It's nice if you're an introvert, right, to work from home for a few years and make some money, but it's going to be really hard after about 2-3 years, I think, for most introverts. At least I talk to a lot, so they say the same thing. I started to build communities, first online because I was an Amazon seller. I found communities of Amazon sellers online, and we started to get together. I went to conferences. I was part of masterminds. I also paid a lot of money to be part of some of these communities because I wanted people who are serious. So sometimes, if you want serious people to build with serious people, you're going to have to pay to be part of those communities. So I invested a lot of time and money, and business became a lot of fun. I realized, there's so much more you can do with 3 other people or 5 or 10. So I got really involved in one community that actually opened up a lot of opportunities for me to make money. Some content creators who were creating their own content, teaching people how to sell on Amazon. I helped some of those. I partnered with them, even created some courses, and I taught people how to build a wholesale Amazon business. This was years back. I've done a lot of random content related courses or workshops or boot camps. But I think it was when I started to get involved and had a lot of fun meeting these people when business took on a different flavor. And it was in 2020 when I stopped and paused for about 6 months. I was doing just the necessary things to make sure we get paid. But for about 6 months, met with a lot of mentors, did a lot of, journaling, trying to uncover what is it that I want to do? What am I supposed to do? Because each one of us have certain natural talents and strengths. And I think we're placed in specific communities to do something, to get involved, to lead to flourishing in the communities we're placed in. So I was trying to identify, how can I do that? What is my path forward? What would I like to spend time on? I don't know if you've read those studies where they ask people at the end of their life how they view their life, and most people regret not doing certain things. It's rare that people regret taking an action and completely failing at it, but they do regret when they don't take that action. So I decided to take this business route because I got this vision of what's possible. Building healthy work environments where you share in the profit with your team members, where you get people, from minimum wage up to any type of position they want if they're willing to work hard. That is a fun vision. Is it easy? No. I've had employee problems just last week, and sometimes, I feel like pulling my hair out. So I'm not pretending like this is the easy path forward, but it's fun, it's meaningful, and it's worth the cost.
Yeah, it sounds like you found your why, like the why and the purpose behind everything. But when you take someone from an entry-level position all the way to a business owner, is that what you're doing? Is someone wants to be mentored and they want to own their business, and you're now, what does success look like, I guess, if you could redefine it?
For me, I want to build healthy work environments where people who maybe don't have the skills, if they have the work ethic and the willingness to learn, have the path to grow. Sometimes, business owners build businesses, they make money, and they don't really care about the employees. I don't want to be that type of person. I want to care about the people I work with, whether they're partners. My role as a business owner and a partner is to make sure everyone who works with me makes more money and achieves their goals. Because if they do, that means if I partner with the right people, not the wrong people, they're going to help me achieve my goals. And, there comes a point where money is not a big deal. Of course, we have bills to pay, and all of us could spend more money, could go on nicer trips, could buy nicer cars. And of course, I understand that's important. It never motivated me. When I had a couple of years where I was waking up, I didn't have to work in my business. The business was making 6 figures in profit, not revenue, profit. And I had a hard time waking up in the morning. I struggled because I didn't know what I'm supposed to be doing. All of us have to have a reason for working. We have to do something meaningful. So building strong teams, building teams where people enjoy coming to work is a big part of my why. And I think it's fun. And I have some stories of employees who were in some of the businesses I've been involved in who really didn't enjoy coming to work, but they needed the job. So they stayed in the job. We took over, we changed, we fired the wrong people. And all of a sudden they felt like coming to work is easier, is fun. It completely changed their day-to-day life because we spend so much time at work. So it's a big part of what I do for sure. And I love hearing those stories where I've had employees tell me, I've never worked for someone who actually cared for me, or you have made these big changes that have improved my life. And we were not able to pay them more. That's the thing. They actually worked more for us than they worked for the other owner, but they are more satisfied. They enjoy their work better, and they care about the business because they see how much we care about them. Those stories are so meaningful to me and so fun. Now, yeah, it's been hard. I'm not pretending like it hasn't been a hard transition or a hard journey.
No, I think that's great. I mean, you're building people as you're building businesses. And so the word that comes to mind is culture. And as you kind of build that culture and change that culture, you can really see the people flourish, like their jobs, not be just a typical number. And I see that happen. I mean, I've had so many jobs, and I think every job I've been to, I've always kind of sensed like I'm replaceable. So it's definitely one way to give back to the community. I've never heard it put that way, but I am inspired by hearing it put that way.
Well, thank you. Now, I would add a statistic that is really crazy. BizBuySell has done studies, right, of how many businesses sold. 80% of the businesses listed there did not sell. So only 20% of the businesses listed sold. That means a large number of businesses are closing. And with baby boomers owning so many businesses in the US, if people don't learn how to buy businesses, if people are not willing to make the sacrifice to learn the skills to own businesses, a lot of businesses are going to close. And there will be a shift, right? If business A closes, maybe business B starts to serve their customers. But you have people who lose their jobs. You have so much tension in the transition. So buying businesses, not only you're buying an asset, which is more important than anything else, you can have an impact in the community. And I'm hoping that people who actually care about the businesses and people don't just buy them because they want to make money, which of course we all need money to survive. It's not a bad motivation, but people who are motivated by money tend to not care as much about the people. I'm hoping people who have the right intentions will buy these businesses and improve them and improve the lives of all of these people. And then each person impacts so many other people. So I think it's going to be a ripple effect if we do it well in our own communities. And that's why I started to get more involved in my own community, because I want to see these businesses changing hands, going from one owner to the right new owner, so that the business continues to serve customers well, but also impact all these families, right, who depend on that person who is part of the business.
Yeah, and that ripple effect, right? You have the bosses or the managers that are there, the employees underneath them, they all have families, and there's probably going to be a customer base to some extent. So the employee's happy, guess what? That customer experience is going to be happy. That customer that's happy is going to make their day better. So it does touch probably hundreds, if not thousands of people just by that one change. I mean, we don't ever think of it that way, but it is actually kind of deep. On the private labeling that you were doing, how did you learn how to do the private labeling? Was that because you joined this group of other business owners and they kind of got you into that? Or is that more of a Fiverr, Upwork type of thing? Or
I did learn by buying a course that taught at least the basics of it. But when you go to Walmart, you see great value, let's say green beans. Walmart does not make green beans. They don't put green beans in a can, but they sell it. So they go to a manufacturer that does it at scale, and then they say, I want you to put this label. That's what white labeling, private labeling is. That's what we did. We identified what people wanted. So our first product was a CrossFit jump rope. If anyone who's listening has been in CrossFit, you know there was a specific type of rope that you had to buy. My business partner was into CrossFit. So we found a manufacturer in China who was making these. Well, first we identified that people were interested in buying this item. There were enough buyers and not a lot of suppliers. So we did our analysis. There are tools on Amazon or any of these, almost any platform nowadays, where you can see or identify the approximate number of people who are searching for something, the amount of revenue generated, and their approximation. They don't have to be perfect, but we identify a product that was doing at least $10,000 per month in revenue. And it was terrible. Like, they didn't even have instructions on how to cut the rope. You had to cut the rope and personalize it for yourself. And most of the negative results or the negative reviews were about the fact that people did not know how to adjust this, and they adjusted. So what we did, we found a manufacturer in China. We said, hey, put this instruction manual in the bag. And that's it. Initially, we only bought like 20 or 50, so very few. And we paid a lot more per unit, but we wanted to make sure it's going to work. And then we bought 100, 200, 1,000, we kept increasing because it sold. But we identify an item people wanted to buy. Then we identify the supplier. You never go to the supplier. You have to have a product that is proven. That makes it a lot easier. And that's how we were able to make it successful. But yeah, the initial step was a course, someone who taught us about it and taught us how to, go to those websites, Alibaba, how to negotiate, because there's a few things you need to know, what to expect, not to believe everything, those agents are telling you. And then what I did, my next step after I did it a couple of times is I actually hired an sourcing agent in China to find my products for me. So I would pay her $100 to $200 and then the cost of the product plus the shipping, because she would find 3 to 5 suppliers for each type of product. She would ship them to us in the US and then we would choose the supplier. So you can make it a lot easier on you. But when we started, we did everything from scratch. We didn't have money to invest in, paying agents or paying graphic designer. We did everything ourselves. The instruction manual, it was just a Word document that we designed as a little brochure, and we send it as a PDF to the manufacturer. We said, hey, print this, put it in the bag, and that's all. You just have to be able to create a brochure, which we learned really quickly how to do.
Yeah, no, that's good, because I guess that training course paid off. I mean, you picked it up, saw how it was done. It was like, all right, I could just repeat that. You found the industry where you saw that there was a gap and you targeted it, and that's kind of how it was successful. Eventually, you also ended up teaching people how to get results for their courses. And so did you end up selling your own course?
So my favorite method of teaching is group coaching. So I did a lot of group coaching with some of these partners that I helped. I never really cared to build my own community. I'm actually doing that with business acquisition. I'm starting to build the community locally and online, because I had more people interested, and I want to be around people, right, that are interested, to partner with them, to invest together. But I always found that I'm good at looking at what someone else is doing and improving it. So I did that several times, and I realized, that's a lot easier for me. But then when you're working for someone else, they have the final decision. So it comes to a point where you have to decide, do I want to build it or not? It comes with a lot of responsibility, building a community. I think that's what held me back, because I care about the people. And even in the workshops I involved in, there were some workshops where people pay me like $2,000 to be part of the workshop. And I didn't see them having results because they got too busy. Life happened. There were so many things that were holding them back, distracting them from what they needed to do. And it was really hard to see. Like, this person paid me $2,000 to be part of this group coaching for, let's say, 2 or 3 months. And they're not seeing results, not because my content is bad, because they can't really do it. So it made me start to ask questions like, what leads people to take action? And by uncovering those things, those are questions I asked myself, but then trying to figure out what gets other people to take action. How do you design an environment that allows the students to take more action, to have more students succeed? And I was able to discover a few things that were extremely helpful that allowed these course creators to double their success rate, the student success rate, and then even double their high ticket sales, because these students who would buy the low ticket courses ended up buying coaching. Very few things I implemented. One, I call it a quick win campaign. Identify what's the easiest quick win you can give people, because if they have a quick win within 30 days, it builds their confidence and it keeps them going. You mentioned that I found that course and that helped me. The reason I had success is because the course was very expensive, and I had to make sure I didn't spend all those thousands of dollars for nothing. It was at a season in my life where I did not have the money. So my friend and I, my housemate from college, we invested together, but we put the money into it. And because there was 2 of us, we're like, we have to make our money back. Even if we do nothing else, we need to get these thousands of dollars. So we invested back. And that was the motivator. It felt really hard. There were so many times I wanted to give up, but the fact that I paid a lot of money actually kept me going. Now, going back to the framework for helping course creators improve the student success rate, quick win campaigns. If you can get people a quick win, they're going to stick around for longer. That's what we did. We actually built a 30-day boot camp for a course creator where students knew what to do every day to get to their first sale within 60 days. The students who went through it, they actually had a lot more success than the students who didn't, because we tracked all of that stuff. And we identified that the students who went through the boot camp were in the community longer, got more involved in the community, and they ended up actually spending money on coaching because they realized, oh, I can do it. I got my first sale or my second sale. So whatever the course creator is doing, if they can come up with a quick win for their students, they're going to have a lot more success. And you always want to build, micro wins at each stage, but that's like the first step. How did we identify what the quick win is? We had a post-purchase quiz. So after students paid to be part of this community, we asked them, what's your level of experience with this topic? 70% were newbies. They've never had like a lot of success. So then we knew, well, if 70% of our students are newbies, we just need to get them to that first sale. Because I remember my first sale. Having the first sell online is pretty powerful. So I knew if I can get them to their first sell, it's going to be really successful. Post-purchase quiz, quick win, and then make sure you have the support. So those are like 3 elements. We actually had these group coaching sessions, and students helped each other. Because what happens is people start things and they don't realize that it's actually work. It's fun. You're motivated the first 7 to 10 days, but then by day 20, you realize, oh, this is hard. I don't know if you've ever heard the Valley of Despair, the emotional journey of anyone who learns new things. You start very optimistic, and then you do some work, you realize, oh, this is a lot harder. So you switch to pessimism, and then you reach a low point where you're not sure if this is worth it. The people who stick with it are the people who are going to have success. And it's very helpful to tell students or to allow students to, be part of the groups and share their story and tell the other people, oh, I felt really hard. This week was so hard. I almost gave up. We created the environment that made it easier for students to be successful. And by just allowing them to share their story, and when other people like you, say, hey, this is hard, or, oh, I almost gave up, but then I decided to keep going and I had the success. It encourages everyone else, because anything you do that's worthwhile is going to be hard at times. I mean, you can probably share your own stories, right, of doing this and other things you've been involved in. Nothing is like extremely easy. Yeah, you can make it easier by being around the right people, by buying the right content to speed up your process, but you still have to put the work in. There will come a point where you reach that valley of despair where you feel like giving up. But if you push through, you get to the other side where you're again experience what's called informed optimism and then success. So it's worth it. That's what we did. We just created the environment which made it easier for people to be successful.
As you're doing the survey and they're newbies, like what was it that held them back?
I think a lot of times overwhelm keeps people from having success, and we talk ourselves down. The most negative talk that happens in our own brain, and we're the people who are responsible for that. So we have to, if we are around other people and realize what we experience is normal, is not abnormal, then it's easier to get through it. When I did it again, I had a friend who was in it with me. So that helped a lot. I don't know if I would have stuck around otherwise. I really don't know. So having someone, right, doing it with someone, it matters a lot to have people around you to help you through those doubting stages where you wonder if it's really worth it, if it's going to work. I was at an event with these multi-company owner. This guy was his companies were generating hundreds of millions of dollars. And he said, I have imposter syndrome often. Like there's so many times where I'm in a room, he said, because he was sharing his story, where I wonder if I know what I'm supposed to be doing as a business owner. And it made it so much easier for me hearing it from him. Extremely successful, a person I've learned from a lot, saying, I have imposter syndrome too. And I have it too, it made it easier. And that's when I realized, just hearing from other people who experience the same things is extremely powerful.
I've never heard the word imposter syndrome. I think this might be the first time I've heard of it. It must be a business term that people throw around. So what is imposter syndrome?
Yeah, that's true. Business owners use it a lot. Is when you don't feel capable, you don't feel like you know what you're doing, you don't feel like you're able to have success. The people who are successful is not the people who think they know it all. The people who have the skills is the people who are resourceful, the people who don't give up. So a lot of people have imposter syndrome. They feel like they don't know what they need to do. It's like they're in the wrong place, and then they stop the business they're working on or the adventure, the side hustle. But if someone who has built multiple businesses to hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue can say he feels incapable sometimes or not enough, like he doesn't know enough, he doesn't have the skills. If he experiences that, that means all of us are okay. We just have to push through it.
That's actually even good advice for me, because even I feel like that sometimes, because I do all of the sourcing, the editing, the posting, the content distribution, and I'm like, man, this is so much work. You just got to push through it. You just got to push through it. That's crazy.
Or, as a random idea, you can monetize it and pay someone else to do it. So that's another way to do it, right? The things that are difficult for you, you can pay others, or you can partner with others who maybe have that skill set. So it's also important not to forget that we all have natural strengths and talents. And sometimes, yes, it's smart to just push through it. And there are times, many times, where we have to. But then sometimes the smartest path forward is to figure out how to make it easier for ourselves. That requires another skill set, either delegating or finding the right partner to help us and to bring our vision to life. So yes, it's a different type of skill set. You're going to have other challenges in making it work. But I remember the first time I hired a virtual assistant who took over certain tasks in my business. Man, it was really nice waking up to a job done. And she didn't do a great job compared to what I would do in the same situation. I would have done a better job, but then she got better at it. And guess what? It removed like 80% of those low value admin tasks that were driving me nuts. So there are other paths. And yes, pushing forward, right, allows you to gain a little bit of momentum. But there comes a point where it's important to also consider, is there an easier way to do it? So that's a good question to ask.
You know what? I think I'm just going to have to book you for one of your consulting sessions. And that's actually a good topic to transition into, is you do offer, I think I saw a free consulting session.
I mean, on some of the websites I have out there, who knows? I would, especially if it's a local business, I would always be willing to meet with people for sure.
I'll correct myself. It's a free discovery call to help identify constraints. So I had a bunch of questions that I wanted to ask you about. You have a book or a booklet, and this booklet is, I'm going to get to it right now. It's called, and I'll link this in the description for people that want to check it out. It's called The Business Experiments That Almost Guarantee Success. And in this book, you talk about the constraint. You really focus on that. You talk about what you call the kink, essentially. In the process, you gave that hose analogy, where if it has a kink in it, then the water is going to create that bottleneck, and it's going to kind of not pass all the way through. And then you have like the processes broken down. You said you have a customer loop, you have a product loop, an operations loop, and so on and so forth. And then you have ways to do a good test. You time box it by keeping it under 10% of your time or your budget. You run it for 2 weeks. You be specific, nothing vague, and then the follow through. And don't skip the review. So I think if we get into this booklet, it's going to be like another 2 hours. So I'm going to just plug this in right here. I'm just going to mention it because I think it's a phenomenal book. I read through it. It's not that long. I think it's like 16 pages. And it's really just direct to the point, shows people how to get success. So, man, I feel like we could do a whole separate episode just on identifying that constraint in itself. But I guess I'll ask you that one question. How would you define that constraint or kink in your own words?
It's the one thing that's holding the business from growing. Really, that's what a constraint is. Or if we think back to the analogy of a garden hose where you have a kink, it's the thing that holds, right, the water from flowing. each business has one area of business that is the constraint that holds the business back. And it's different for each business owner. We don't tend to think about it. But when I saw the numbers, if you have, let's just, to make it simple, imagine our business has only 3 departments. One department is at 100% efficiency, the other one 100% efficiency, and then the third one is at 40% efficiency. The efficiency of the business and the success of the business is stuck at 40%. The part of the business that is doing the worst impacts your business the most. If you think of a business, being 90, 90, 40, sometimes we think, oh, we should get the 90 to 100%. So this department is great. And then the second one is great. But the overall result of the system is not going to go beyond 40%. Like, you cannot push more water. You cannot push more revenue if you have a constraint, whether that's fulfillment or whatever constraint you have. So I like to always think about the constraint because it opens up the door to doubling your business within 12 months very often. So what is the thing that's keeping you from growing? You have to ask the right questions. And maybe an easy way for people is to think about the process that they go in their business, from customers requesting or prospects requesting an estimate of the service, people who are interested maybe in their service. What's that customer journey to actually pay you and leave you a review? You can think of each stage in that process. And one of those stages is a constraint in your business. You just have to uncover it, work on it, and then it can completely change your business. Does that help?
Yeah, it's like when businesses feel like they've outgrown or they've tapped into their full potential, they actually just got to look at what is their lowest performing process or bottleneck, whether it's the customer, the product, or the service, and figure out if they can adjust that. Because like, there's downstream and upstream impacts, right? If that is the bottleneck, then that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. It's a great booklet. I think it's a great framework that you've created. I think it's linked also on your website. So we'll be able to get to it.
Yeah, it's on the printing website. So that's one of the businesses I own. And I have tons of those booklets. I didn't put them out there, but I use them either in consulting or in training our team. Again, I'm learning things and I'm forcing myself to put them down on paper because that allows me to uncover the lessons I've discovered. So it's a selfish thing, first of all. Like, if you as a business owner and anyone listening, if you are able to sit down and kind of write down the things you've learned in the last year or 2 years or 3 years, that can be turned into a process that becomes extremely valuable. You can sell it, you can apply it to other businesses, you can get equity by using that process. A lot of times we take for granted the things that have become so easy to us. When I used to talk a lot about buying an Amazon business, and people were always shocked at all the different things I've learned over the years. They felt so easy to me, and they still do because I've gone through the same process so many times. And anytime I talk to a newbie, I was reminded, oh, this is the accumulation of like years and years of experience. We take for granted what we know. And it's a good process for any business owner. Like, write down the process you've developed. That process becomes extremely useful. It can help your team, but it can also help other people.
That's how I feel sitting across the desk from you. Is like, I'm the newbie. And I'm like, you're saying this like, oh, it's just so common sense. I'm like, no, these are actually really, really great tidbits to kind of like dive deeper into, learn more about. So it's a good feedback or good insight into what that process looks like. And you mentioned learning briefly. So is there one thing that you've learned this year that you want to highlight?
Okay, let me give you a story. This would probably illustrate it best. I was talking to someone in 2025 who shared with me his vision of building this company and take it to exit. And I've done some business. I don't have tons of skills compared to other people who have taken companies to 9 figures or $1 billion in revenue. My businesses have been a lot smaller, so I know I'm limited. But as I was listening to this guy, his vision sounded way too big, and it felt like he's being unrealistic with what he's trying to accomplish in 3 to 5 years. But as I talked to him more month after month, because he kept pursuing me and saying, hey, let's partner on this. As he shared more, I realized it wasn't the vision itself that was the most important. He has built relationships over the last 20 years with people, high caliber people who he has helped. So now he can go to them and say, hey, I need your help with this part of my vision. And they jump in right away because he was very helpful. He's helped them build their own businesses. So because he had those relationships, what seemed like impossible the first time he shared his vision with me became very possible. So I'm sharing this story to emphasize that things become so much easier when you know the right people, when you're in the right room, when you have the right relationships, access to the right resources. You don't have to have everything figured out. But if you have the right people, you bring them together, you get exponential growth. It reminded me that sometimes I go and try the hard way, right? I try to do everything, figure everything out, maybe hire the right person, or maybe invest the money into things. But if you come up with a big vision and then think, what is the easier way to get there? It's almost always if you find the right people. I was reading recently about the founder of Netflix. The first company he started was terrible, and he was working nonstop. So he decided the next company I'm going to build is not going to be dependent on me 100%. He was dealing with issues during the day, CEO level stuff, and coding at night because all of his team members knew this guy is going to need, like, he wants to be involved. So he built the company the wrong way, the first one, and he just sold out of exhaustion. When he built Netflix the second time, he had a clear vision. He attracted the right people, and they were able to build a $400 billion company. I don't even know the valuation now, but big company, because he realized there's an easier way to do it by having a big vision, attracting the right people. So I think people is a big part of my own story, just finding the right people, learning from the right people, being around the right people. And that was a lesson that was highlighted in a new way this past year. Like, this guy can do in 3 years what would take me 20 to 30 years, maybe, because of the relationships. That's pretty impressive, right? So that is true about almost anyone who's listening, or, each one of us. We can get done in 2-3 years what other people might do in 20 years if we have the right relationships, if we're in the right rooms.
That's super impressive. Yeah. Something that would take, especially you've been in business and you're saying 20 to 30 years, and he's looking at it for like 3 to 5, like that's very, very 10x the speed. That's crazy. So that's a good highlight. Sometimes it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And if you find the right people and the high caliber people that can sow back into you, especially if I call it favor debt, where you've helped someone and now they have to help you back, cash in that favor debt and you can get there quicker. What are your thoughts on augmented virtual reality?
I don't have a lot of experience, so I probably shouldn't say much. I've never been super interested in it.
All right, so that's just a thought bubble there. We'll kind of circle back to that when that becomes a bigger trend. What are your thoughts on blockchain technology?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, all of these topics are such big topics. We could talk for so long about it. I think we can always look to the past and learn principles that can be applied to the future, whether it's augmented reality or blockchain, anything else you want to talk about. The human psychology doesn't change. So I like to always look to the past and learn from the past and see what are principles that are duplicatable or applied to these things. I believe because people have less trust in government and authority, we see more people looking to decentralized systems. So I assume we're going to see more of it, blockchain technology, even Bitcoin and crypto and all of these things that are supposedly more decentralized are going to become more valuable and probably part of our lives. However, maybe I don't know if I should go there. If
Don't go there.
There's this book, The Confession of an Economic Hitman. The argument this guy makes in the book is that you have the empires of the day. They're always going to use the whatever they can to stay in power. So even with blockchain or decentralized systems, you have certain powers that have power and resources, and they're going to fight it. That's always going to be the case. If you look at any empire, in the past, they've used force and military to accomplish their goals. But in the book, The Confession of an Economic Hitman, the author is claiming that the US government used these private firms to go overseas to countries that have a lot of resources in order to get them to project all of these industrial expansions if the US is going to, these private firms is going to help them build an infrastructure that's going to help industry expand and evolve in a country. And what he argued in the book is that these companies like his would go into these countries, make these projections that were not realistic so that the country would get a big loan for World Bank and these other big banks, and then they would default on the loans so that these rich countries could go and buy their resources at rock bottom prices in order to help them pay their loan. So the country ended up being in debt and struggling, but they needed the initial help because they couldn't do it without help. His argument is that these powers are continue to do this. China has been doing it in Africa, South America for the last 15 years. The US has been doing it for the last 30 to 40 years. That's his argument. You have to read the book if you really want to get all the details. I think there's truth to that. People who are in power are going to try to fight against any systems that are putting their power and their money at risk. So with blockchain, all of these decentralized systems, I think we'll see a lot more interesting things happening in the future. They will become very valuable because they are decentralized, but there's so many other philosophical questions that we might have to talk about to understand it.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I could see the need for the blockchain technology and crypto and all that stuff, but I can also see governments are going to want to definitely take control of it. A lot of it's not even decentralized. Honestly, a lot of it is centralized, and whoever has the most coins has the most voting powers, and then there's governance, and so there's a lot of ways to meddle with it. So there are some that are truly decentralized, and I think those might flourish, but a lot of them may look decentralized on paper but might not actually be decentralized in reality. But we talked a lot about business, so what qualities do you think someone needs to have to be successful in business?
Humility to know that you're going to make tons of mistakes, but being willing to learn from it. Without that trait, I think it's hard to do well in business. Most of the people who are successful are willing to learn from others. I think the ability to build good relationships with the right people is going to speed up the path for people to achieve their goals and have success faster. There are tons of traits that might help in one industry versus the other. So it also depends what type of business. But if you're resourceful, you don't even have to have resources, skills, money. If you're resourceful, I think you can do well because you learn from each failure and you kind of continue to build on it. If you don't give up, you're going to figure it out. You're going to have some success. There's so many stories out there. I'm sure you've read them. So many people trying for 5 or 10 or 15 years and having very little success, but every lesson got them closer to that overnight success. But resourceful, being willing to learn and knowing that there is an answer. Almost any problem we have, there's probably an answer out there. So the person who has that trait or believes that thing is going to figure it out.
Most businesses fail within the first 2 to 5 years of being open. So if the resourcefulness is the quality that helps business owners be successful, is that also the reason why most of them fail? Or would you give a different answer for why they fail in the first 2 to 5 years?
Some industries are hard. So if you start in a hard industry that has a really high success likelihood of failure, then you're stacking the deck against yourself. Let me use this analogy. If you play poker, and you have to have 5 cards, to have a good hand. If you have 4 cards, but you don't have the 5th that you need to win the hand, it doesn't matter you have 4 great cards. You need all 5. So in business, it's kind of the same. Sometimes, right, you need a combination of things to be successful, and you might have 4, but not have the 5th one. So you have to be careful about it. But even if you fail at the first business, I know tons of people who failed at the first one, but they did the second or the third was extremely successful. So it's not a reason to say that you should stop going, and building businesses, being an entrepreneur. A lot of people stop there and they go back, get a job, and, just live normal lives. Just because the business closes doesn't mean you're a failure. That idea was not good. Maybe you only had 3 of the 5 cards that you needed, and you need to build, the deck in your favor. Maybe partner with the right people. Who knows what the reasons are? I think there's always a lot of factors, but make it easier for yourself to be successful.
Make it easy for yourself to be successful. Yeah, it's the resources list definitely counts, and the failures get you one step closer to being successful. And you just need that one, right? You just need that one success. So if you fail 7 times, 8 times, that one could blow all of that out the water. So
correct. Yeah. Bezos at Amazon said that we are successful not because we're special, because the amount of experiments we run. They would actually run thousands of experiments per day, per month in their business. For people who don't sell on Amazon, you might not notice it, but sometimes they would change where one line appears on the checkout page or on the product page. They would change the color. They would change how they showed the discount. So you would see on some pages the discount was crossed out. The other one, it would just say the percentage that discounted. Like thousands of experiments. Small experiments, not big experiments. Sometimes big experiments for them because they had the money. But for most business owners, it doesn't take that much. Just micro wins at each stage is going to increase the likelihood of success. But you have to be willing to keep testing and not give up. There are times where it's the right thing to close the business and start afresh. I mean, I've done it. I sold a business where I closed things down. There's the right time. What I want people to remember is every failure is a lesson. So look at it with that perspective, and then it doesn't really matter what happens. You continue to build on it.
Now I know where you got the inspiration for the experiment machine, the booklet I was talking about earlier, because it sounds just like what you explained. Taking small tests, you said 10% of your time or your money, testing it, measuring it, seeing if it works, and then trying again. So you must be reading that Jeff Bezos book. You're like, oh, I'm going to write a big whole booklet out of this, because it's kind of the same concept. He's taking these small A/B tests to see what works and what doesn't work, and then making it happen from there.
Every successful CEO and entrepreneur has learned that. I just put it in a different framework or format. But yeah, it's not a new idea. It's something people who have had success have talked about a ton.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Delia, there's so much in this world of business. Is there any topic that we haven't discussed that you want to highlight or bring back up or dive deeper into?
I'm a big believer in trying to build a type of business that fits you as a person, whoever the owner is. And there are ways to do it. You will fail many times, but the failures are going to get you closer to that path. And then it allows you to really become the person you were created to be. I think whether it's your own business, being a partner, being a worker in a business, an employee, it doesn't matter. If you are willing to take some risks and go after the things that allow you to become and discover who you are, you get to have a lot more joy and fun in life. And that's one of the reasons I keep going, right? Even when it's hard, is because I've discovered more of who I am. I have a lot more fun. I've worked for universities. I've worked for people. I've worked in admin positions. I've worked for other people. I even worked as a janitorial person. I worked in a Chinese restaurant for a few years while I was in college. I've had a lot of random jobs. You can find joy in any position, any job you have. But some of those positions were needed. I needed to pay some bills, to go to school, do these other things. So some of those things are there just to as stepping stones to your next step. But if you're slowly getting closer to designing the work environment that fits you as a person, that allows you to experience flow and do the type of work that doesn't feel like work, that's success in my book. And of course, that also means you have to pay your bills. So it has to be the type of work that also pays your bill. But you can design your life slowly, right? 1 quarter at a time to get closer to being that person who works on those things that bring you life, that bring you joy. That is what I'm trying to do. And I think business allows a lot of people to discover those things, because business forces you to ask very insightful questions. When you don't have money to pay your employees, you are the person that has to ask some hard questions. Am I supposed to be doing this? Am I doing something wrong? Is there anything else I can do? Of course, the team is there to help you, but you make some of those final decisions. It allows you to look inside like nothing else. So for me, business has been that path to discover what I enjoy, what I dislike, how to design this life that allows me to have more joy and at the same time, make the money to pay the bills. Some years were rough, other years were easy. I made tons of money. So it's not always easy, but it is more joyful, more meaningful, and I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I think it's worth it too. You've definitely given me a lot to think about, that's for sure. Where can people find your social media contacts, find your website, your contact information if they want to connect, follow you, subscribe to your newsletter?
Yeah, I have a landing page, deliahq.com, where I'm going to start using that platform. Really, it's a newsletter where I'm going to share a lot more resources about business. There's a Substack I started writing, and I haven't been great at writing the last 2 months, but the Substack and deliahq.com, those are probably 2 sources. Cashflow Lab is the name of the Substack, but I don't remember the link. We'll have to post it.
Okay, well, I'll get all the links from you. We'll put it in the description below. We'll put it in the lower thirds that are going to pop up on the video, and so people can easily access your content. We have a section where we have the last guest leave a question for the next guest. And the question left for you from our prior guest is, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And do you see yourself doing the same thing as you're doing now or something different?
Definitely similar things. I'm sure in 5 years I will learn a lot more. I'm doing a lot bigger deals. I'm involved in bigger projects. So I assume that in 5 years, I'm going to look back and I won't even recognize myself. Delia from January 2026 won't recognize Delia in January 2031. So I know by doing things, by being in motion, we learn a lot. But I know in about 5 years, I want to take a sabbatical, exit at least some of the businesses I'm part of, and then start again. I think it's fun what I do. So I don't see myself stopping ever. I don't see retirement as this fun thing. Like, people look forward to retirement. I look forward to doing more of what I'm doing because it's fun and I enjoy it.
I'm glad you're enjoying what you're doing, and I'm looking to see, where you go in 2031. That's going to be pretty exciting to follow. Well, Delia, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
For the viewers, growth isn't about doing more. It's about finding one place where effort actually matters. Thank you for watching this episode of the Key Concepts Podcast. We'll catch you on the next one.